What's up, guys? It's your boy, Dayron Arias.
Happy guy looking ass.
The Climax trigger situation is insane, boys. Yeah, this is gonna be a very goofy, off-the-cuff video. I just want to make a quick little tier list about how much I love each specific Climax trigger. Because not all triggers are created equal. Some are good, some are bad. Let's get into it. So I am by no means good at this game. As you could probably say, I'm pretty trash at this game. But I think it's fun to make content about Weiss Schwarz, even if I'm not the most qualified to do so. Alright, lads, let's just get this out of the way. This standby trigger right here, we need a new tier for this. This is the Sweat Lodge. This is the Sweat Lodge tier. If you run the standby trigger, you're a freaking McSweat. When a standby Climax trigger is triggered during the trigger step,
that's a whole other level of harassment.
That allows you to summon from your graveyard one character card that has a level equal to or less than your current level +1. And when it's summoned, it's placed on your stage rested. The triggered effect is actually the same as the effect it would have if it was played directly from the hand. So you can actually just do that effect when you want at will, which is pretty crazy, at least during your Climax phase. And the effect basically allows you to early play a lot of your cards. So if you're at level 0, you can summon up to a level 1. If you're at level 2, you can summon up to a level 3, and so on. Every time I go to locals, anyone who's running 8 standbys, they are there at the locals to win. They're not there to have fun and mess around. They're there to actually win. A lot of decks tend to be very aggressive, very aggro. The standby trigger is just crazy, and every time I go against someone who has a standby trigger, they're usually pretty good at the game, and they're able to just destroy me. Next meme, the book trigger. Now the book trigger, it allows you to draw a card, which the Yu-Gi-Oh player in me thinks that's pretty insane. At least at the beginning, when I first heard this, I thought that was insane. Like, you just get a free upstart goblin, basically, whenever this is triggered. In Weiss Schwarz, top decking a card blindly just isn't as useful as other things in the game. It's usually much better to be able to like salvage a specific card. The cool thing about the book trigger, as opposed to these other ones we'll get into in a second, is that the book trigger, whenever it triggers, you're basically guaranteed for the effect to happen, right? Unlike, say, the standby, where if you for some reason don't have any characters in your graveyard, which can happen if you just refreshed, then you would basically lose out on the opportunity to be able to use that. With the book trigger, you're essentially always going to have cards in your deck. So you can always be able to draw an extra one. So that's kind of a nice feature with the book trigger. I'll give it a C tier. I might move it up, but I'll give it a C tier. Now with the wind trigger, it allows you to bounce one of your opponent's character cards back from the stage to their hand, which is pretty mixed. Now my buddy Sadboy used to use the Golden Wind structure deck. I remember playing against him a lot with him using this trigger, and I feel like half the time he wouldn't want to use the trigger effect when this popped up.
Choose one of your opponent's characters, return it to their hand.
You want to do that, or it's optional?
That's fine.
Like, he would much rather have the opportunity to send the opposing character card to the waiting room rather than allow me to just have that card back in my hand. So I'm going to put it in the new tier that I'm making called the Why Would You tier. Like, why would you? I'm sure there's applications for it, but it just feels like half the time we don't even want to use this trigger. The gate trigger, or as the pros call it, the pants trigger.
It's the pants.
Pants, Eddie?
Chicks dig pants.
Because I guess if you squint really hard, this structure kind of looks like a pair of pants. I thought that was really funny. My buddy Brown Weiss, the first time I played against him, he explained to me that people call this the pants trigger, but it makes sense because I think the official name is the gate trigger, and that gets mixed a lot, to me at least, with this other one, which is the door trigger, but they both kind of look like gates. It allows you to salvage or bring a Climax card from your graveyard back to your hand, which is nice, especially if you're trying to set up for Climax combos. It can be very useful, but sometimes, you know, if you just refresh or if you're just unlucky, you may not have any Climax cards in the waiting room, and that can happen more often than you think, at least for me. Maybe if you're more of a pro player, if you actually know what you're doing, you can kind of set up your graveyard more effectively, but randomness is always going to be a thing in Weiss Schwarz, and sometimes, as my buddy Brown Weiss says, you just get weissed. and bad things just happen. Now, personally, I actually really like how random the game of Weiss Schwarz is. As a filthy, disgusting, casual player, I really love that. I think it actually really goes thematically well with the idea of these cartoons fighting each other, because in cartoons and in stories in general, sometimes unexpected things happen. You know, sometimes you do hit them for 4 damage and it all sticks. And sometimes when you think you're gonna win, everything just gets canceled for no reason and your opponent gets a clutch win. That stuff can be really exciting and what really makes this game fun for me. But I can understand the flip side of that. Like, some people who are more competitive might get really frustrated if, you know, you've done everything right, you've calculated all the odds, and you really play the game optimally. Sometimes bad luck can happen and your opponent just cancels everything, or you just don't draw the card you want. But randomness is going to be a thing in every card game. So if you really hate randomness, play a game like chess, you know, or a game like that, or there's no randomness to be had. All that to say, I think the gate trigger is cool. The pants trigger is fine. I certainly like it better than the book and the wind. I will give it a B tier for now. Now we have the door trigger, or the comeback kid as the pros call it. When this is triggered, you may salvage or return a card from your graveyard to your hand that is a character card. And this is probably one of my favorites. It's always useful. I mean, yes, there are situations, very rarely, if you just refreshed or if your graveyard is full of Climax cards, yeah, maybe you don't get what you'd like from this. More often than not, your deck is mostly character cards, so you're more than likely to be able to get some value out of the door trigger here. Which is nice, especially when you need certain cards for your Climax combos, or any specific combos that you want, or any specific card that you need. I don't think it's quite Sweat Lodge. A tier. Next is the bag trigger. Oh man. Let's just call it what it is. I'm gonna have to change this tier. Suck champ. The bag trigger is just absolute cheeks, bro. It's been power crept to hell. I don't even think they make Climax cards anymore that have this effect. It allows you to send the top card of your deck to stock, and that is a blind stock, as the kids call it. That is to say, you cannot look at the card that you're putting from the top of your deck to stock. Of course, the card that you trigger, the Climax card that you trigger, is also being added to the stock, so you essentially get double the grease, double the stock for one attack. Which I guess can be useful. Everything else is just better than this. Like, I would rather have the gold bar, which we'll get to in a second. I think it's appropriately named bag because Bushiro definitely fumbled the bag when designing this, because it's not good anymore, and I don't even know if it was good back then.
Off you go. That's right. Really dig that bag in there. Thanks, bag triggers.
I wasn't playing Weiss Schwarz back when new cards with the bag were being produced. Speaking of gold bar, gold bars, boys. I believe the official name is called the Treasure.
Stolen treasures.
I like to call it the gold bars because that just sounds more masculine, more epic, you know? Like, we got bars, dude.
You don't got bars like that.
It's essentially a much better version of the bag trigger. You can send the triggered Climax card to your hand and then blind stock from the top of your deck one extra card to your stock. So you essentially don't miss out on having your Climax card, which is kind of funny because I always feel like whenever I play a deck that isn't gold bars, I kind of feel like I'm missing out when I don't draw a specific Climax card. Like, oh man, I wish I could have had that in my hand. Well, the gold bars essentially increases your chances that you'll be able to actually have those cards in your hand for your Climax combos and such. I really love playing decks that are 8 gold bar. I really love my 8 gold bar Spy X family deck. It's a really fun deck. And essentially allows me to just spam Climax cards over and over and over again. It's really fun. I have some gameplay on it from my channel. So I'm going to put it above the comeback at A tier. It's not quite as busted as the Sweat Lodge standby, but it's still really fun. You know what? I hate to do it, but I got to add a tier here. Add a row above. Bada bing. I'm going to call this the Giga Chad tier. If you run 8 gold bars, you are a Giga Chad in my book. So for the shot trigger, the character that triggered this icon during its attack, if the damage is cancelled, then you can burn your opponent for 1 extra amount of damage. You know, the quirky thing about the shot trigger is that it literally does not work. I have never been able to get this thing to work once during the entire time I've played a deck that uses it. I used a Railgun deck. It's the only Japanese deck I have. It's the Railgun S deck. and I built a deck around using the item characters from the item, basically the gang green gang, like the evil gang of lads from Railgun S. The leader of the gang, basically she uses the shot trigger. I think her name is like Mugino Meltdown or something like that. It's been a while since I've seen that cartoon. And I wanted to make a deck centering around those characters because I think Mugino and her cronies are just really, really goofy villains. Like, they're just the stupidest villains.
Railgun.
I don't know why they're so goofy to me. Because I think on paper, the shot trigger sounds like a really fun effect, but it never works. Every time I attack and I reveal a shot trigger, it's like, whoa, cool. And then my attack just goes through. More often than not, like, this is just useless. Like, it doesn't add anything. I guess it could have like a clutch use. I gotta put this in the literally does not work. I gotta put this in the literally does not work tier. I still think it's better than the Suck Champ bag. Because at least with the shot, if you get this shot off, I would probably pop off the table if I was able to actually get the shot trigger to do what it's supposed to do. But the Suck Champ over there is just boring. +2 soul. Now, there are a bunch of different +2 souls that do different things when they're actually played from the hand. I don't care about that. For right now, I only care about the trigger effects when they are actually triggered. With the exception of the Sweat Lodge. Because the Sweat Lodge, that standby does the same thing when it's triggered and same thing when it's played from the hand, so I kind of have to talk about that. And the +2 soul is going below the gold bar in the Giga Chad. I haven't seen very many people use the +2 souls anymore. What you're essentially doing is just pumping up the soul power when you attack. And, you know, the more soul power you have, the more likely it is to cancel. So maybe this isn't the best. But there are certain decks that can really, really use this to their benefit. And where they just deal damage after damage to where eventually they hit you enough, they'll kill you with that amount of damage. If you use this, you're just an absolute Giga Chad. You love them stonks go up, big number go up, big damage, unga bunga. You're just an absolute Giga Chad if you're using the +2 souls. If you use 8 +2 souls in your deck, you want to have fun, and you're just awesome and amazing. So I'm going to have the +2 soul in the Giga Chad area. But I noticed that this probably was made a while ago because I don't see the choice trigger. I'm going to pretend this is the choice trigger. Just use your imagination. Now, the trigger effect of the choice icon, you can take a character that has a soul icon from your graveyard and either add it to your hand or put it into stock. And I think there's a lot of utility there. It does run the risk of being dead. You definitely want to use it in a deck that has a lot of soul trigger icon characters. I still want to be mindful of that, because if you don't have any, then the trigger is not going to do its job. And I think in that regard, it has a little bit more risk of being useless than a lot of these other ones. Certainly more than the comeback over here. But at the same time, if you're not an idiot like me and you actually build your deck around your Climax cards, then that shouldn't be too much of a problem. But, not every deck can use a million soul triggers, so you gotta choose that wisely. I would put this above the pants. You know what? I'm gonna rename this tier the good but requires more brain cells. To be fair, you need a pretty big IQ to use these two. But I think they're both much better than the book. I'm gonna make this the nerd tier, because you gotta be a nerd to be into books.
Egghead likes his bookie book.
So that is my complete tier list. Let me know in the comments below, did I completely mess this up? Is the bag trigger actually super busted? But I think I'm feeling pretty good about this tier list, guys. But of course, you can use any of these in your deck, because it doesn't matter what you run, as long as you're running a cartoon that you love. That is the funnest part of Weiss Schwarz, is playing cards with your favorite cartoons. And I think that's just a beautiful thing. Weiss Schwarz, Climax triggers forever.